Oh, this whole time?
No, I wasn't. We're rolling now.
Oh my God.
Action.
Let's go. Hey, how are you doing, Jihane?
Great. It's good to see you, Rachel.
Good to see you too. What's been going on for you today?
Actually, I took it easy today because I didn't have anything on my schedule, which I try to be more conscious of that, have days where I don't have anything on my schedule. And usually I try my best to not do too much, hang out outside and just watch my daughter play. She's 13 months old and yeah, it's fun to see her figuring things out.
Yeah, and good for your own health, I would imagine.
Yeah, so it took me a lifetime to learn this lesson. I tend to work a little too much. I was a bit of a workaholic in my past, and as you can expect, I had bad consequences. I went through burnout, and I'm learning to build more space in my life and give myself permission to hang out and not be productive whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay, I want to come back to that because I would imagine that has had a huge effect on your coaching style and what you want for your clients. So I wanted to start by asking you a question that I've never actually asked you, but I've been wondering about for a while, which is your email address, which is Science of Humans. Where does that come
from? So a few years ago, I was just out of the lab and at the time wasn't too sure about what was the transition for me, what I would do, what I should be doing with my life. But I've always had a passion for science and in particular biology, which is what I studied. But I also found myself like going down the rabbit holes of looking on the internet, what made us humans. Like there's a whole line of thinking of people like theorizing what happened to our species that set us apart, right? And I was reading about a whole family of genes that are specific to humans. They're called the human accelerating genes, I think. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, I was in that period really trying to soak up on what is the science of what makes us humans. And I just wanted to have a clever email address that people can remember because my name is very hard to say. So yeah, so that's how it came about.
And say your name again.
Jihane Farrell.
Nice. First of Science of Humans. Yeah. Yes. And you mentioned that you were working in a lab. So you have a background in science. Your PhD is in cell biology?
Yeah. So actually, if you were to read the diploma, the actual title is Life Sciences.
Okay.
Cell biology is really how do you call it? The major that I followed. Yeah. And I fell in love with the functioning of a cell. I'm a big signaling pathway girl for the nerds.
Okay.
For the people out there who know what signaling pathways, like I'm your gal. Yeah, so love that. Just thinking about how a cell operate. Found that fascinating, and because I was always driven by a will to have an impact, a positive impact, and wanting to do something that is relevant in medical sciences. So the natural application of cell biology in that was cancer biology. So I started working on that with my experience in research laboratories back in France, where I'm from. And loved it so much that I got a PhD in it. And after my PhD, looked for a postdoc abroad. I really wanted to get a different perspective on research and found a postdoc in Canada.
Right. And this is when you were working on prostate cancer. research?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the lab I landed in was really focused on prostate cancer. But what I ended up doing with the different experiences that I had in the lab was I did a lot of delivery, so drug delivery and gene delivery as well. And so in that lab, I started working on gene therapy that was delivered through a nanoparticle.
Okay.
The focus of my work. And this also led me to do more work in aging biology as well, because we started collaborating with a company that was trying to develop a gene therapy for the clearance of senescent cells. And senescent cells are cells in the body, like sometimes called zombie cells. They do not reproduce, and they stop cycling.
Okay.
They also stop operating their biological functions, and they're kind of in a sort of a stale type of state.
Okay.
So
like
they
most
don't.
of humans going through quarantine, just sort of wandering through life.
Yeah, and hopefully that's not another common point, but the senescent cells, they can create a lot of disturbances in their environment because they have a very strong inflammatory phenotype.
Okay.
They release a lot of cytokines. I'm sorry, I'm realizing I'm getting super technical in this talk, so
well, I think
bear
some
with
people
me.
might be familiar with like the cytokine storm when people have been paying more attention to COVID and a lot of the implications
Right.
of diseases.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I've heard the term to be. It sounds like it might be a bit more in people's vocabulary these days.
Yeah. So what is a cytokine?
A cytokine is an pro-inflammatory molecule. So it's a little tiny, often proteins, peptides, and their job is to recruit the cells to in that inflammatory response. And we often think about inflammation in a bad way because it is associated with all kinds of chronic disease. But naturally, inflammation is a response to an injury, an infection. It's kind of our body reaction to injuries.
Yeah.
It's only bad when it gets out of control. And in the context of aging, what happens is those cells that are called senescent cells or zombie cells, they tend to accumulate in the body. And because of the sheer number of them and those inflammatory cytokines that they are releasing, they tend to create dysfunctions in the different organs that they accumulate in.
Okay. So when people talk about fasting as a way to kick off autophagy, is that the process of getting rid of the senescent cells?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right on the nose. So autophagy is a way to get rid of them, and fasting is definitely one way, but not the only one. Exercise does that. Sleep helps a lot with that. Yeah.
Okay. So you have this background in hard sciences. You've done a ton of research in medicine. Take me back to like a year and a half ago, when you're like, oh, I think I'm going to be a health coach, or I'm going to enroll in this health coach training program, which is how we met, became friends and colleagues.
What a good question. It's a combination of different things that led me to consider a career as a health coach. And so when I was still in a research lab working on cancer, I read a statistic that kind of hit me in a way that I didn't expect. I've heard that half of all cancer deaths could be avoided with lifestyle interventions.
Okay.
So things such as physical activity, quit smoking, the sort of things would have such an impact that half of all cancer deaths could be avoided.
Wow.
And when it's pretty massive. And when I heard that, I'm sorry?
Where did you come across that? When was that?
That was just every year, there are some global statistics that are released on cancer. And they check, for example, the prevalence of breast cancer. They check all kinds of numbers. And that was in 2016. And I'm guessing that wasn't the first time that this number appeared. For some reason, that was the first time that it connected with me. And I'm like, wait a minute. So by being better at prevention, we could have this huge impact. And I was still working in a lab, like, making super smart drugs and super sophisticated stuff. And then I'm like, there's nothing I can do as like in the lab that would yield that kind of result. I mean, I could be very optimistic, but like those targeted drugs that came on the market since the years 2000, the promise was great because they really were sort of leveraging the biology of cancer to kill cancer cells. And I think in immunotherapy these days, we see like huge success stories. But in general, when it comes to cancer treatments, you can't really expect to have a drug that would lead to people half of the people on the drug surviving. So when I made that connection in my mind, something happened for me. And then I started thinking, if prevention could be so impactful, how come this is not more? How come we don't do it more? How come we don't do that better? And the answer to this question didn't come to me until I myself started to make lifestyle changes. I made some radical shifts in my diet and started habits that were game changers for me. And I realized then, this is why we're not doing such a good job, is because on an individual level, making changes for your health is very difficult. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And for me, what was instrumental is also some type of self-discoveries. There's an inner work that can support this kind of changes. And if you're doing all of that just by yourself and you're not really connected to why or motivation, it can be so difficult to make those changes.
Yeah,
so
that alone.
Yeah, and I just realized the power of behavior change when I changed my diet, and all of a sudden I had crazy amount of energy, very stable all day. My mood was stable. My cognitive abilities, I'm like, wow, I'm a machine. Like nothing can stop me now. And I realized, how come I didn't know that? Like I've been eating, in a way that wasn't supporting me for so many years. And I had no idea that diet could be so like impactful.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
No, that led me to get interested in health coaching. And I also witnessed my partner going through his own challenges with an autoimmune condition. And having a lot of frustration with the conventional medicine, going from one specialist to another and people giving very contradictory advice. He decided to make his own changes, and me supporting him was made that much of a difference. And that's when I realized, what if I could do that for others? And that's when I started looking into health coaching training programs. I didn't find much until I heard Chris Kresser on a podcast. I went onto the website and I looked at the curriculum, and immediately I was like, that sounds super solid, and decided to sign up almost immediately.
That's so exciting. What were some of those habits that you changed that were so effective for you?
Yeah. So there are a few things. As far as diet, I really cleaned up a lot. I got rid of processed food. I relied more heavily on fats. I went through a period of through the ketogenic diet for a period of time. became a fat burning machine. And I started fasting. So little by little, intermittent fasting, then 24 hours, then I pushed it with periods where I would fast for up to 3 or 4 days. That was on over a period of about a year.
Okay.
And one of the habit that was a game changer for me was starting a mindfulness practice, like becoming really regular with it.
Yeah.
Made a huge difference in my life.
What does your mindfulness practice look like?
So to be 100% transparent, I kind of fell off the wagon recently. I'm not sitting for formal mindfulness so much, but at the moment, what I'm doing a bit more of is mindful moments throughout the day. And just take a pause, take a second, and take stock of my environment and how I feel. I integrate a lot more breathing, intentional breathing throughout the day. But before I got there, I was practicing mindfulness every day for 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, those pauses are so helpful, especially before we go into a coaching session or work with a client, to take a second to just calm down, not be rushing from activity to activity, and really think about how we're going to serve our client in the next session.
Yeah, I don't think how you could coach well without this mindfulness, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's been one of probably my favorite and most surprising parts of this program, was the emphasis on mindfulness and positive psychology and behavior change. Obviously, we have so much functional health content, and that's incredible. But the psychological and neurological side of this has been so important for me.
Yeah, totally. The positive psychology is incredibly powerful. And the simple idea that by telling people what you see is good in them creates so much energy, confidence, motivation, that alone can be transformative, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What strengths are you leveraging as you get through this process?
Do you mean when I'm coaching or as a student in the program?
I was thinking as a student, but also as a coach, because you have such an interesting and unique background with your PhD biology versus a lot of us coming in from a completely different realm.
Right. So as far as my background goes, I am at the moment working on trying to structure an offer. I would like to help people get into the habit of fasting. And everybody will be at a different level, obviously, but I'm working on structuring an offer that would help people start with intermittent fasting and then push it through longer periods of time if that's something of interest or something that could serve them. So I will definitely be leveraging some of my knowledge and the science that's supporting the evidence that's supporting for fasting and cognitive abilities. But also, so let me think for a second about your question. Yeah, I think my background will probably come through in the type of content that I will be able to produce. I'm definitely very careful with finding research that is supporting my claims.
Yeah.
And I find that in this day and time, it's so important to rely on sources in order to spread information. With still, this idea that we don't know it all, and that's something I find maybe can be lacking in the scientific world sometimes, is this idea that science has the answer to all of the problems. And we always have to be very mindful that it's the science at its current state have this much to offer. And for me, being a scientist is really about knowing that you're probably wrong. You will be shown wrong. So you can only, make a hypothesis and based on this is what we have observed, this is what we know, but always be careful to, keep in mind that we could, and we probably are wrong.
Yeah, there's a certain level of humility that you have to bring to this practice, while also knowing that we're doing the best given the information that we have at the time.
Yeah, that's right. But that being said, I find that, so what I love about coaching is that you're really here to provide the answer. You're really helping people to be on their own journey. I'm very excited to share some information and provide more resources for people, and I hope to do that with my content and possibly a little bit of structure around my offering.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's so much power in helping people find what works for them.
Right.
I stumble upon some tools that are very helpful to me, and I want to tell people, try it. It's awesome. Try it.
Yeah.
Just to have this experimental mindset. However, I love that in coaching we don't, push people into doing anything. We really are just there to support them and help them come up with what works best for them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings about coaching. It's definitely something that I didn't quite understand going into this program, which is that we're not here to be some sort of private health consultant that tells people what to do and diagnoses them and reads their lab tests and interprets a bunch of stuff. It's really about understanding what the person's knowledge and background is and their unique circumstances and strengths, and then leveraging that into some sustainable plan that actually leads to transformation, rather than slapping them with some sort of meal plan or food thing that they're not going to follow through on, and leaving them completely on their own to make these changes.
Yeah, and in when I used to work in research, we had that term of personalized medicine that was thrown around a bunch around new treatments, but that's not until I started learning how to coach that I really truly found what personalized medicine means. Because you're really there helping people come up with their own plan, their own strategies that fit their life, and that's like uniquely fit to who they are. And that's true personalized medicine, and that is true patient or client-centered treatment and care. So I love that about coaching, really.
Yeah.
I think we could use a bit more patient advocacy these days. Certainly, having seen my partner, in the middle of that, and people are not treated as the expert of their own conditions. And that's too bad, because if there was this partnership between the patient and the healthcare provider, people would be more likely to get better and find what works for them.
Yeah, I think there's better compliance when there's an understanding on both sides about what the end goal is, because I think there's often this disconnect between what the provider assumes the patient wants and what the patient is really willing to do. And unless those two things align, the outcomes are always going to be insufficient. Neither party will be satisfied.
And I think coaching provides a unique opportunity in the sense that because we build a space for people, there's a lot of, we can spend a lot of time just hearing what's going on for them. And part of our skills is to kind of put a mirror in front of the person, like, this is what you've been telling me, this is what I've heard. And having someone tell you out loud what you just said, like restate it, is just incredibly helpful in, oh yeah, I do know that, I want that. It really provide this validation.
Yeah.
And coaching is really a beautiful space where people can just chat and liberate a bunch of things. And if you're someone who's struggling with some health conditions, maybe most health practitioners won't have too much time to really be listening to you. So there's a lot of value in spending time with a coach if you want to just even articulate things, verbalize, and get a better understanding of what you want.
Yeah, I think that role of empathy is so critical, because it's very easy as a practitioner or somebody to tell someone that they need to lose weight and exercise more and eat better. But it takes a lot more time and it's a lot more complex to really understand, well, why isn't that person doing that in the first place? Is it because they're in pain every time they walk? Or is it because their schedule is such that cooking meals for themselves or their family is really difficult? And finding ways to work within those constraints and have some degree of improvement in health is really what the coach's expertise is in.
Yeah, I like that you said some degree, because I feel like oftentimes a client finds traction if you are able to help them think about this big, overwhelming, change your diet, start exercising 3 times a week, and like breaking it down to what can you do that feels doable, and where can you start. It doesn't have to be this huge thing all at once. And being able to help people find these small victories that really create momentum and get them going.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you're in this really unique situation to do, which is that you come from the science background. And so when you're coaching, how are you able to help cultivate this more experimental mindset in your clients?
As I like that you throw that experimental mindset, because it's funny how when you're in the lab, you're so used to failure. I mean, most of what you do is not going to work out, and you have to do it again and tweak until you find the right conditions. And I've it's been years of experience in that for me. And I guess just telling people what is it you can try and help them relieve from the pressure, and really reframe that failure is not, this big, it's not the end of the road. It's just a piece of learning. What did you learn from that? What did you take away? And what can you do next week that would maybe, get you closer to the goal?
Yeah, these are critical data points. They're not evidence of some kind of insufficient character, like defect or whatever. And I think when you have that mindset as a coach, you help the client, like that's where the positive psychology comes in. You help them understand maybe there was a setback. These are inevitable in life. What did we learn from this? Like, what is going to help us moving forward? Not us, help you. Sorry, that was not coaching.
Yeah, no, you got it. And yeah, like you said, setbacks. I mean, we call them setbacks, but yeah, it's just a learning.
It's just life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as we're winding up, wrapping up, winding down, whatever. I'm wondering, you had mentioned a couple things about people that you're hoping to serve with your coaching practice in terms of longevity and aging and brain health. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about where you are specializing as a coach.
Sure, thanks. So because of my background in longevity, and I mean, longevity is a pretty broad question, and there's a lot you can do in your lifestyle that could support you living longer years, and more importantly, healthy years. And so people might be familiar with the difference between lifespan and health span. So lifespan is how old you can live. Health span is how old you can live in a healthy manner where you're still functioning. And I just really want to send a message of hope that you can age in a way where you're confident that you're doing the best, and you will be a contributing person as old as it gets. And I'm hoping to focus on cognitive longevity, because cognitive decline is something that happens. It starts very early on, or rather, if you take steps to prevent that early on, you can expect some great results. So people in their 40s can implement habits that will preserve their cognitive abilities way into their 70s, 80s. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve. And I would like to help mostly people who are really relying on their brain as an asset in their lives. And cognitive fatigue is something that can come in many different forms. It is, it's an aspect of burnout. There's a lot of people complaining of mental brain fog. And like I said, I would really like to help people implement some fasting routines in their lives to kind of enhance those cognitive abilities.
Yeah, so there are ways to mitigate against what a lot of people see as this inevitable decline or a death sentence based off of their genetic predisposition or family history. And
Yes.
you're stepping in, at age 40 or 50, before a lot of that stuff comes to the surface, and giving people an option of a different way to age.
That's exactly right, Rachel. And I don't see it as an inevitable decline. I see it as something that's under your control. And there are many little things that you can do every day to prevent it. So yeah, I'm very excited to communicate all of that.
Yeah, I think that's an exciting way to fuse your amazing background, your science knowledge, and also just your personal characteristics and how inspiring you are to work with. So I'm really happy and excited to see what your coaching career ends up looking like.
Thanks, Rachel. So am I. Thanks for connecting today.
Yes. Great to talk to you as always. Take care.
You too.
Bye.